Have you ever wondered how this trick is done? It's one of those things where you know it has something to do with his cane, yet it's still confusing to look at. Well, it turns out that the simplest explanation is the right one. There's a YouTube video of one of these magicians getting ready for this illusion. And from what we can tell, there's a metal base that's connected to a metal pole, which is connected to a seat. The illusionist wears thick clothing, and the entire structure is covered by some kind of cloth, revealing what looks like only a cane. Have you ever wondered why beer is always sold in glass bottles? I mean, soda is sold in plastic bottles, but beer isn't. So what's the deal? Well, some people think it's because of tradition, but the actual reason is more important than that. You see, plastic is porous, and this means that bottling in plastic negatively affects the taste and carbonation level of the beer. Have you ever wondered how this magic trick was done? You know it probably has something to do with his arm touching the bus, but it's still confusing to look at. Well, it turns out that the simplest explanation is the right one. The secret is pretty straightforward when you start to notice that his right arm never moves, like not even his fingers move. You can also notice the bump in the front of his shirt, which is his actual right arm. The one attached to the bus is actually a metal rod connected to a harness that he sits in. Burger King once sold a black Whopper that ended up turning everyone's poop green. Let me explain. In 2015, the company wanted to introduce a spooky Halloween burger, so they decided to make one with black buns. But in order to do this, they had to add a lot of blue food coloring, which ended up. It may seem that the notches on the key are random, but when it is inserted into the lock, each part coincides with a notch inside it, which raises it to a very specific height. By simply lifting each notch through the notches on the key, it allows the rod inside the wheel to open the door. Now, if you insert the wrong key, its edges will not match the required height to lift the notches correctly, leaving the door closed. When the mousetrap is set up, the metal strip is pushed back and forth, then a metal rod is placed on top of this strip and fixed at the end of the mousetrap. The feed is placed, which is usually a strong-smelling food, such as cheese, on a sensitive cushion near the upper part of the Zanbaric mechanism. As soon as the mousetrap touches the feed, it stimulates the sensitive cushion to release the metal rod, causing the Zanbaric to be released with tension. This leads to the fast fixing of the mousetrap on the mouse. This phone is the most destructive weapon of all time, and it recently sold in an auction for $244,000. So what makes this thing so destructive? Well, the name on the back might give you a clue. Most of Hitler's commands for the last 2 years of World War II were made from this phone. This inanimate object was used to send millions to their deaths. This means that. Have you ever wondered why your jeans have this tiny little pocket? Well, some people think it's just part of the design, but that wasn't always the case. It turns out that jean companies added this tiny pocket for a very specific reason. You see, back in the day, workers needed to be able to tell the time while on the job. So jean companies added this tiny pocket for a safe place to keep a pocket watch.
Have you ever wondered why there are small holes in the covers of pens? Most people think that it has to do with ink, but the real reason is much more important than that. Pen companies in reality require the addition of these small holes. As you can see, it is enough space to blow air when the cover is attached to a person's neck.
A doctor could theoretically sever all of the blood vessels in your neck and connect them to the neck of a donor body. Then the muscles, tendons, and bones are precisely cut and your head would be fully disconnected. The surgeon would then spend hours reconnecting everything in your neck to the donor body. And once everything is attached, in theory, your head would be completely joined to a new body. Have you ever wondered why brushing your teeth makes everything taste like sh? Well, there's actually a pretty solid explanation for this. You see, your tongue is covered in proteins that act as receptors for taste. But there's one sneaky ingredient in toothpaste called SLS. SLS interferes with the proteins on your tongue. This impairs your ability to taste sweet flavors, replacing them with an unpleasant bitter sensation. Cockroaches are known to crawl up people's ears while they are sleeping, and they do this because they are searching for food. You see, cockroaches are attracted to fermented foods like cheese and beer, and your earwax smells just as good to them. Now, despite urban legends, bugs can't crawl all the way into your brain, but they can get stuck in your ear and sometimes require a trip to the ER. There's this sculpture in South Dakota called Crazy Horse, and it'll be one of the biggest sculptures in the world when it's finished. But that's if it ever gets finished. They have been working on this monument for 75 years. And if you're wondering why it's taking so long, well, it's because of the man who started the project. You see, he refused to accept government funding, relying only on donations and admission fees. A decision that has dramatically slowed down progress. Have you ever wondered why we use the @ symbol in our emails? Well, believe it or not, the man who invented email was thinking about using a comma or a slash instead. But he noticed a lot of people already had those symbols in their usernames, which would have been too confusing. But no one was using the @ symbol, so he picked that one instead. You know the tags on mattresses? The ones that are apparently illegal to remove? Well, some people think you'd actually be in trouble if you cut them off. But it says right on the tag that it doesn't apply to consumers. You see, back in the day, some manufacturers would stuff their mattresses with anything to save money. This included discarded food, old rags, and horsehair. So the government started to require a tag that listed exactly what the mattress was stuffed with. And they made it illegal for manufacturers to remove. You know the equal sign in math? Well, back in the day, people actually wrote is equal to instead. And mathematician Robert Recorde was getting tired of writing it over and over. So in 1557, he started using two horizontal lines instead. He figured since the two lines were the same size, they were equal to each other, which made it the perfect symbol for equality.